Good morning, everybody. 8:11 a.m. It is July 14th. Welcome to my channel. Now, of course, what's the market gonna be if there's no news over the weekend, right? So, Trump talking about tariffs on Mexico and EU, like 30%. He's already talked about South Korea and Japan. So we opened up and gapped down on Sunday at 6 p.m. And right now we're back into Friday's range, right? In futures, right, basically, what is that there? Basically, I'll show you later. We're at the month-to-day anchor VWAP, basically. And if you look at that month-to-day anchor VWAP, it's pretty much flat because that's what we've been doing. All right, we're not going anywhere. I believe on a weekly chart we have like a doji candle, so we didn't really do much last week. This week we have a lot more data, and earning season actually is started. All right, and that as I'm talking to you guys, I'm actually going to bring that up, and we'll talk about what earnings are in store for this week, because I believe we're talking about Netflix. All right, we're talking about Netflix. We're talking about ASML. Give me 1 second, and I'm gonna bring that up. Back to earnings season. That generally means a lot of swing plays for me are out because it's just nuts here. And I'm just going to bring up the earnings so we can look at them. Alrighty. So now I got that loaded up. Alright, so I just talked about the tariffs. This week we got CPI, PPI. We have, what else we have? Michigan Consumer Sentiment on Friday. That's what we have going on. Alright. So Friday was like a day that we also, I believed, we did open up with a gap lower. We winded up bouncing off key levels, and then the internals were not that strong and they were not that weak. So I was live on Friday in my Discord, and I got long on a pullback, ripped up, made new highs, and then kind of went right back to my entry. Pretty decent trade. Then it wound up breaking those highs again, and then just falling. And that was basically due to internals just never really being super strong. Okay, so we'll get into that, of course, in a little bit. Now, anyway, let's get into it. Welcome to my channel. My name is Steven Gonzalez. I use market profile and volume profile to find structure in the markets along with gambling exposure level, supply and demand, the most traded price of the year, the month, the week, and the previous day. That is how I come up with game plans. Okay, those are the things I use to give me scenarios and to make me make these if-then statements when I do scenarios. Okay, I also use anchor VWAPs and of course my trusty market internals that are my bread and butter. Okay, now hopefully you guys join me, subscribe, set an alert as I give you the story of the markets, right? Economic calendar, the news, the leaders and the laggards, a bunch of TA, and then I give you scenarios. Okay, now if you want to get into the minutia of how I think, how I see the markets, you will join my Discord. Okay, when I give live commentary there. So that is Confluence Trading. Go to my YouTube homepage, click on the link, join up, and you will see my live commentary. Exactly what I'm seeing under the hood of the markets, not in price action. Not in price action. Don't get me wrong, price action is very important, but it's what's underneath the story, what's underneath the hood of the markets, really why the markets are going to move higher, why they're going to stay in a range. That's all based on internals. Okay, so that's what's going on there. All right, now I think we're ready to go right into futures, and we'll check out what's moving markets today. Bitcoin's out of control. All right. Bitcoin at 122. Wow. 122. Unbelievable. Crude. Crude catching a bid. Up 1.68%. Almost up $1.14 a barrel. Ethereum's up 1.29. Silver. I'm a silver owner. I'm loving the silver. It's almost at 40. Spot 40. Loving it. Needs to catch up to gold. Gold up 0.23. And you got 10-year yields up 0.16. The dollar's flat. 30-year bonds being sold down 0.19. The Dow's down 0.26. ES down 0.27. Nasdaq's down 0.28 and the Russell's down 0.29. Now, when the market opened and as the night went on, these were very weak. But now they've paired their losses. Okay? I expect that. Mag 7 Plus, let's look at this. Coinbase, that's your Bitcoin proxy, up 1.44%. Now, that, I'm not gonna lie, that hurts me. I saw Coinbase, I think it went down to 140s. And I was like, I should probably nibble here. I should probably nibble here. Boy, it's at 392 now. All right. Boeing, I just saw a bunch of defensive stocks catching some bids here, so they're up 1.35%. Tesla, ever since I was looking at a swing at 300, that would have looked good, but I didn't take it, mainly because of headline risk with Elon. But that's up 1.22%. JP Morgan's up 105. Okay, now we'll get into some laggards here. Berkshire Hathaway down 0.3. Now Berkshire Hathaway got an update. I actually got stopped out on my swing on that. Friggin' Friday, it just hit that again and then ripped up. Of course it did. Microsoft down 0.26. Broadcom down 0.39. AMD down 0.54. And Apple, the laggard, down 0.83. Now, Apple, I did do analysis for one of my good friends in my Discord. Okay, I did an analysis for Apple in my Discord, and I pretty in depth. And I said I think Apple's going to rest. Okay, made a move, and exactly what it's doing now. It's resting. Right? It's pretty much doing nothing. Right? Makes a couple moves, but then it's at 209 right now. So I said the anchor VWAP was there, the 100-day moving average was there, key resistance was there. It was going to hard to make another back-to-back move unless there was a catalyst. Hopefully, Rosita, if she's listening, hopefully she took some profits maybe on one of those moves up. Moving on, top sectors. Is there anything to note here? Not really. We're going to move on to sectors here. Right. Energy. Crude's really up. But sometimes crude in the energy sector doesn't necessarily correlate lock and step. Now look, they're up 0.02 energy, but crude is up 1.60%. Okay. So nothing really leading here in sectors. Now your laggards, healthcare, financials down 0.17, semis down 0.30, and technology is your laggard. Now technology, remember, is the largest weighted sector in the S&P 500. Okay, so that's generally a risk off. However, we're at a key support level. Okay, because this market's just balancing. Now you do have some catalysts this week, CPI, PPI, that could take us out of this balance. Okay, and earnings. All right, I think we're ready for the economic calendar. All right, let's move on. Alrighty. Alright. So today there's really nothing. Let's just make sure that. Maybe 1 star. We got 3-month bill auction, 6-month bill auction. That's not really usually moving markets. Core inflation, I talked about it rest of the week, PPI, and then Michigan consumer sentiment. Alright, I'm not going to go into detail here because we'll do it every day. Alright, now we go from that, we go right to earnings. What do we have? Okay, before the open today, that's really not important. After the close today, not really anything. But here we go. We got bank earnings this week. Tuesday before the open, JP Morgan, Citibank, Wells Fargo, BlackRock, Bank of New York, all right, Albertsons, all right, grocery store. Tuesday after the close, Omnicom Group, all right. Wednesday, semis, ASML, Bank of America, Goldman Sachs, Progressive Insurance, Johnson & Johnson, Morgan Stanley, PNC. So, all right, after the close on Wednesday, some airline here, United Airlines, Alcoa, I believe that's aluminum, Kinder Morgan. Let's see here, what else? All right, keep moving on. Then you got another semi, TSMC, Taiwan Semis, okay, before the open on Thursday, followed by PepsiCo. PepsiCo, a staple, before the open, okay, Travelers Insurance, Novartis, all right, after the close on Thursday, the big one, Netflix, Interactive Brokers, what else here? Western Alliance, that's a regional bank. Let's go to Friday before the open, 3M, Truist, American Express, Charles Schwab, Ally Bank. All right, that is your earnings for this week. We'll go over them each day. All right, now we're going to get into some news. Now, I've already mentioned this, but basically, Trump talked about global trade is in the spotlight once more after President Donald Trump announced over the weekend he would be introducing 30% tariffs on imports from Mexico and the European Union. Okay, markets didn't like that. Moving on, let's see if there's any stock news here. If not, we'll move on. All right, we'll move on. We're going to move on to some news. Let's see here. EU, South Korea seek U.S. trade deals to soften tariff blow. Trump spending bill will likely boost costs for insurers. Meta investors, Zuckerberg to square off at $8 billion trial over alleged privacy violations. Musk says he does not support merger between Tesla and XAI. All right. Anything else here? Let's see. That's interesting. Apple, the iPhone maker, has submitted a bid worth at least $150 million a year for the U.S. rights to stream Formula One races. Interesting. Looks like Broadcom, chipmaker, has pulled out of plans to invest in a microchip plant in Spain. NVIDIA, Jensen Huang will hold a media briefing in Beijing on July 16th. Okay. And, all right. Let's see if there's any key upgrades and downgrades here, just real quick. If they're not updated, I'm not going to get, oh, here we go. Let's see here. Anything to know? Like Kellogg, upgraded. All right, downgrades. Let's see those. Downgrades, nothing to really talk about here. Do anyone want to go into breadth charts? Yeah, we can look at that real quick. Let's look at how we're doing with the 20-day simple moving average here. Oh, after Friday, 67%, basically 68% of S&P 500 stocks are over their 20-day simple moving average. Remember, when you get up in this area, you get a little frothy. Okay, doesn't mean we can't bounce up. We're just imbalanced, but you could see the overall breadth has weakened a little bit last week. Remember, markets don't move on overall breadth; they move on market cap. So as long as like the Mag 7 move up, most likely, more than not, that's going to pull the markets up. Doesn't matter if the rest of the market falls apart. That's why they call it. There's the Mag 7 and the 493 S&P 500. That doesn't matter. No, that's what they talk about there. We went over a bunch of stuff already. All right. I think we're ready. You know what we're ready for? We're ready for the market internals recap. That's what we're ready for. Let's do it. Here we are. Here's the market internals. All right. Here's the recap. Now, look. The highs of these bars is market cap weight is only 94. That's a very benign reading. Okay? Very benign. And you can see the equal weight was stronger than the market cap, which is usually a feather in the cap for the bears. Right? So the overall market was stronger than the market cap. Okay, remember, market cap is how the market moves. And look at the sectors, right? Top four. Tech was flat from the open. Financials was down. Consumer discretionary was up 0.26. Communications was down 0.32. Healthcare was down. See how they're like red, green, red, green, red, green, right? So you're not going to get a big move up in the markets. You're just not. Hence this, right? So that's your market internals recap. Now, moving on. And also, just so everybody knows these readings, S&P 500. This is actually more negative, but we gap down. So some of these readings, all these readings use the close. So sometimes if you gap down, the numbers could jade you. So sometimes I know when there's a big gap down, I don't look at these numbers as intently because they're based off the previous day's close. So if we gap down, they're going to be more negative. But if we're like in the middle of a range, they're very good to gauge. But in this case, they were not because of the gap down. All right. Now, moving on, we're going to get into the daily charts now. Over the weekend, your boy was very busy. I was creating code in Python with I was doing a weekly expected move study. So now I have that. Had to go into the lab a little bit to find out the best formula of how I want to display those expected moves. Okay. And you can see right here in this graphic here, that's part of the indicator. All right. So it tells me the close, right? So I'll just show you here what our expected moves are. So I just have to move my thing, this, and you'll see them here. Okay. So expected move that shows up right on my chart right there. And this is derived from the options market. Okay, that's a pretty. Let's see here. Okay, so this is the expected move. Pretty cool, right? So just to give you background on this, okay, for the weekly expected move, this is right 70% of the time that we will close within this range. Okay, and you can right here, here's the range. So the range expected for this week for the SPY is on the low side 613.68 to the high side 633.56, right? From the close of 623.62. So the black line shows me the close. The green is the highs, the green's lows. So 70% of the time we close inside this range. So if you're up here and we keep hitting our head, or we're up here, I would be very cautious of longs. If same thing down here, if we're really hitting the downside of this, I'd be very cautious of shorts because the options market has already priced in this risk. That's where you get these moves from. So it's a plus or minus $9.94 based on Friday's close and the expiration of this Friday, which is also OPEX. Okay, so that's that. So I'm going to tighten this back up so we can analyze. And that's not all I did this weekend. Also have a new tool that I'm looking at here, a super DOM. I have a DOM from NinjaTrader, but it doesn't give you as much, and I'm doing a trial right now with this super DOM. I'll show you that a little bit later. They also have something else that's kind of like Bookmap, but for NinjaTrader. I'm going to really test that out as well because you could save a lot of money, and I don't have to pay a monthly fee. It's like a one-time fee, so it works right in NinjaTrader. If I test that out, and I'll let everybody know. Okay. Now let's get into the daily charts. All right. So this is what we did last week. Okay. And what did we do? That was the previous week's range, right? We stayed within it. We also stayed above what? Last month's highs. That's the white line. 9 EMA daily right here. So we just are in a range. Okay, there's nothing to see. Where are we now? 622.25, 622.25. We are right here. We're in the lower third of Friday. Okay, lower third of Friday. Nothing to see here, right? Even after the gap down. Let's go into the futures. Okay, now you can see in futures, it shows us what happened. We went off last month's highs, bounced right off, broke the 90 MA daily. Now we're going back up. So if I'm going to look at this balance here. So, we got a range, just a rough range here, right? Price is here. We just went to the bottom of the range. And now look, we have a shot to go back up to the other side. Now look, this has this week's range in it because futures already started. Okay. And once the week keeps going, this last week's range will be up on my charts. It's the beauty of having those on your charts, right? I don't have to think about, oh, no, was that last week high? Was that last month? Where's last month? It's all on this chart. Okay. Moving on, Qs. Same thing, in a range, right? We stayed within last week's range. Hit the 9 EMA daily, right? Held last month's highs. Now, where are we now? 552.80, 552.80, right here, right at last month's highs. We're in the lower third of Friday's session. Okay? And let's see in the futures here. You're gonna see the range, right? We're just in a range. Here's last week's range. Highs and lows. We're within last week. 9 MA daily pushed off. Here's our range. Right? In futures. Right here. Okay? Price is here. Here's last week's lows. What are we going to do? Look at last week. We didn't break last week's lows, but look. We came in, found support right here. Now, if balance is to work, you got 2 sessions down, we can make ourselves ways back up here. Okay? We just have to see. Now, moving on to that triple-headed monster, that your bond market, which has absolutely been doing absolutely nothing. Okay? Nothing. Nothing. And that's getting to catching a bid today, right? Going up to the anchor VWAP of this year. But I'll tell you right now, all you got to do, like I said, look at the moving averages. 50 is flat, 100 days kind of flat, 200, it's just going nowhere. It's your triple-headed monster here. Let's get into your dollar. Your dollar is a catching a bid. Look, there's a channel, okay? Here's this channel, right? Boom, 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 boom. Right at the channel. Do we break? I don't know. Okay, I don't know. But it's worth a look, right? It's worth a look. And we got to go with the VIX. Where are we at in that VIX? Right? We popped up. That's from this push down. We're at a 17.4 VIX. Okay, we're hitting the 20-day simple moving average. Look at last week's highs, last week's lows. Okay. Let's see what we could do here. All right. So, I don't see tariffs. They're still causing markets to go down. But then when they go down, just understand this. The market prices them in. Remember, the more he keeps doing the tariff, the more numb the market gets. And eventually, it almost won't do anything. So, that's very important to understand that. If the market, he mentions tariffs, they price them in, and then we move on. Okay? All right. Now, we're going to go into the hourly charts here. Let's just look. Give me a second here where I pull that up. Let me bring up the ES. Okay. We're going to look at the hourly charts now. Let me get my marker. All right, so basically, that was the previous week's highs right here, right? And we came down. Trump mentioning tariffs, pushed up, and then on Friday, we went up, right? And then we closed here. Market opens up right here on Sunday at 6 p.m. It drops, gets bought, drops again, gets bought, and now we're here. Okay, so this is your key level still, 62.70 ultimate balance. Ultimate balance. Okay, 62.70. If ES loses this, no good at all. Okay, but it doesn't lose it. See, every time it tries to find acceptance below it, it doesn't. So that is essentially where you buy. Okay, because once these sellers start to take profits, that's a nice candle here, and you reclaim this level, bias should be to go back up to balance. Okay, very simple. Very simple. Okay, if we want to just put a nice little, let's put a nice little volume profile. Let's just see what we've done from here, right, to this point. We'll show the price is 63.08 from this point in time. Okay, you can see it's a balanced profile, right? And let's just go from this high here, right here, boop, balanced. At distribution, you got the meat of the move, the value area, and then you have, right? So look, you have less participants, more participants. It's pretty balanced. Okay, so it's just balanced. That's really all you got to say. All right, let's move on to the NASDAQ here. Okay, NASDAQ. So NASDAQ has two major levels. The big one, the bull bear line, is your 22830. That is this line here. That's your most traded price of the last month. That has been support. That's your bull bear line in the NASDAQ. Okay, it's your bull bear line. And look what the NASDAQ did on Friday. It broke this. I said, you don't want to be in here. If it reclaims this level, see the reclaim here? Whoop, it ended up pushing up off this level, that 229 level. Okay. However, market gap down, right? Opened up right here. Pushed down. Look at this level. Tried to break it, could not. Found buyers. Tried to break it again, found buyers. Reclaimed this level. Now you're in the middle of a chop zone here. Okay. And now you want to see if the market can hold that level to start to go back up. Okay, now if you look at the trend, you're getting lower highs here, right? So if you come in and start to do, let's say, hit this, fall back under, do you take out these lows? I don't know, right? But my thing is, I would be looking for a break and a hold a level to see if you can take out that swing high and work yourself up to the top of this range. All right, that is your NASDAQ. Now, just to give you right here, look at where this price is. There's your month-to-date anchor view of July. That's where price is right now. Can't make that up. Okay. Let's get rid of this anchor view up. That's meaningless now. Even this anchored view up's pretty much meaningless. Okay. So that's just your chart, right? Even if we did one of these, right? Let's do a volume profile and start it here. I bet you all we see is a nice balanced session. Yup. That's what I figured. You got your value area high, value area low. Look what your most traded price is. It's right on there. That's why I have it on my charts. The most traded price of the week, 229, right there. Right? It's not a surprise. Okay? Bulk of the trade happens in the value area. Okay? So that's what you got going there. Let's get rid of that. I don't need to have that, but I just like seeing that. Okay? I don't need to have that on my chart. But it's always a nice tool to have. I have those automatically painted on my charts anyway. So that's your hourly. Now we're going to move over. Actually, I could show you guys my super dom here real quick, which I'll probably go live today to test this out. I also have something else, like I said, is like a book map for NinjaTrader, which I'm really excited to try that. So here is my super dom. Okay, so really excited about this. NinjaTrader itself, native, does not have a super dom with like the trades, okay, at the bid and at the ask. Though they don't have that. Okay, so here you got your passive buyers, passive sellers. You have trades that I don't have. They don't give you that information, right? Now, right now you can't see it because the trading has not started yet. But I have a bunch of profiles here, and I'm going to show this off today, probably when I'm live, right? But it's going to give me the delta at price. It's going to give me a volume profile of the session, a volume profile of buyers and sellers. My time in sales here now has highlighted large orders. It's pretty cool. It's not free, right? But it visualizes it more concise for me. Now I want to see if I can really, this really makes sense for me to use this. Because I already customized it over the weekend. I did some playback simulations with it. So really have to see, because what I like about it is it puts the profiles, the value areas, the VPOCs, the VWAPs, large orders, the delta, all on this one area. I don't have to, usually right now I have to look at multiple screens to see this, right? I do have a footprint chart, but this gives you just like the exact price. I don't have to go, okay, it just is just more exact. All right, so I'm going to use this today, but I just wanted to show you guys that. I'll be looking at that today, and like I said, I'm also going to test out that book map like plugin. That I'm excited about that, because bookmap is awesome, but it's a separate tool. This would be inside Ninja, so that would be pretty cool. Okay. Now all of those things just visualize things differently. Okay. Let's go to our market profile, volume profile. All right, and this is where we do our analysis. Okay. Not sure who's with me this morning. Maybe I'm by myself. Not sure if Rosita there, Pancake, documents, not sure. Doesn't matter, because this is my process. I do this if no one's listening. I actually do this if no one's listening. And I do it live with you. I haven't done this. I don't analyze it and go, okay, this is what I'm going to say. I do it live. Okay? I do it live. All right. Like I said, documents. So, all right. So, let's look at this together here. Now, remember what I just did, this volume profiles. Well, this automatic gets painted here. There's the blue profile. So we got our value area, and then we got our excess, right? That is, if you round this out, that is a very balanced profile. So that just tells me I'm in balance, which I already know we are. I already know we are. Okay. Now, if we look really quickly at a recap of Friday's session, right? Friday's session in documents knows, because he was live with me in the Discord, and he was along with me in a different way, but we were along together. So we opened up, pushed down, and then I got this move to here. Then I held, I got stopped, I think around here. And then the market, I almost went long again, that would have worked. And we took out these highs by a little bit, and then we failed because of those internals were not that strong. Okay, that's what happened on Friday. All right, now as far as today, we have a poor high here. See down here it says poor high. I don't need it to say it. I already know that it's poor high. That's three 30-minute periods that have a tail. They don't have excess. This is going to break, and I would assume it might even break while we're talking to get that tail. Okay, because most auctions have a tail. Have a tail, right? Have a tail. If they don't have tails, that's considered poor structure, and that gets corrected eventually. Okay, because usually everything in life has an equal and even distribution. That's what market profile is, right? If you have a bell curve, 68.3% is this. That's like 1 sigma, but that's your value area, right? And then you have tails. Everything in life usually is like that even distribution. And market profile, volume profile is just that turned vertically. Okay? That's why it's a useful tool. All right? So, look what we did. We already know. We came down to the key level. Here's your 6270, our monster bull bear line in the ES. Right? Monster bull bear line. It's your ultimate balance, the most traded price of the week and of the month. Okay, now this will probably shift to the most traded price of the week. This price is 6307. This will probably move up there today. That doesn't take away the power of this level, okay? Because it's been support. All right, because it's been support. Now, right off the bat, of course, we got to mark off our levels. All right, so we have demand here. Right at that key, that encompasses that 62.7. Look at the most traded price of the overnight. It happens to be 62.70. Okay. And we know we came down here and what happened? Failed. You could not go lower. And you reclaim this level. Okay, so as far as this, my bias is we start to move back up. Okay, we're back inside of Friday's range. Okay, we're back inside of Friday's range. So this is pretty easy analysis. Okay, now we do have a supply here right at Friday's highs. You can see Friday had a very bullish imbalance to the profile. Okay, so this makes there's a good resistance here. And we can break that, right? Remember I said poor structure always gets corrected. Okay. This right here, when we were gapping down, would have been gap fill. That's your Friday's lows. Okay. Here's your anchor VWAP for the month. We're holding that right now. We should put a tail in here. We should put a tail in. Okay. And this pretty much is our balance highs. Which encompasses the prior 2 weeks highs. Okay. Now, next thing I'm going to do here, we're gonna open this up because that's all market profile is 30-minute bars. So that's all it is. Nothing to it. Just 30-minute bars. There's the price action for overnight. Okay. You can see the poor high. 3 30-minute bars that have the same high. That's a poor high. Just means that it's poor structure. Okay. That means longs have poor location. And why this is important, right? Because large institutions are not exact in their entries. They don't care about value area low, high, all these little nuances that we talk about. They don't care about that. So these are small time traders that are getting stuck at this level overnight high. Right? So I believe this will get cleaned and get corrected. It should probably happen while I'm talking. All right, so now that brings us to the analysis. All right. And we're going to go with a bull case. All right. So now I'm going to put a little, actually, let me put a little box on this because I mean, no, I'm not. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. I'm not even sure if I just put the scenario thing up there. I think I did, but I'm going to put it up again. All right, so pretty simple. Pretty simple. You got single prints here. All right. So what do I think is going to happen? Or what? Well, I can't think. I know what's happening. I only have to do scenarios, right? What I think is going to happen is this: we're going to put a tail in. Okay, it happens now or later. And I'm going to wait for a pullback, right? And it's beautiful here because the 60 to 70 is your most traded price of the month. It's your monster support. It's your line in the sand, right? That happens to be your most traded price of the overnight. You can see all the trade that's happened there, right? It also happens to be demand. So if we come back here and we hold the level, I want to go long. I am going to target this supply zone, 6,300, which happens to also encompass the 24-hour most traded price of week, 63.07. Okay, now this poor structure then becomes in my sights, and see if we can take that out, hold it, and maybe go up to the prior week's highs. Okay, and why I'm putting it all the way up here, because we're in balance. And if you were a short and you started here, you still got a lower high, right? You're still getting paid. Your stops could be here. Now we just gapped down in the overnight. We try it again. Shorts are loving it. We did not take out this level. We came up across it. Now, if I'm short up here, I probably took some off here. And if we start to make our move back up, all shorts will have to start to cover, and market will start to just do this, because that's what has to happen. And then you get new longs in there as well. And because these shorts become buyers, okay? So that's what I see happening, and that's why I like the long. Okay? Now, if we're going to go with another scenario for a long, okay, we could also do this. Push up, make that extension, pull back, and then do the same thing. Okay? Honestly, that's all I'd probably be interested in. Now, there could be a bear trap scenario. There could be a bear trap scenario where we very quickly take out 6270 and the internals are not that weak, and we reclaim it, boom, long. You don't want to spend time down here. Okay? And that's your longs. Let's look at shorts. Shorts. Okay? Well, obviously, you want to take out 6270, right? So if we correct this poor high and we do this, boop, but then we come through the open. Now remember, you got longs from here. You come out and take down this support, and you find yourself at 6271. I would take some off the table and see if we can go down to the overnight lows, which happens to be a key support if you look to the left. Okay. Maybe demand zone here. This is last week's lows. So if we hold down here and you find acceptance, boom, you're going to go down to last week's lows, 62.46. I don't know how much you get, would be gravy. There's a support there at 62.35 around, okay? Now, just want to let you notice, if we start to move up, and you do have supply here, and you do have the most traded price of the 24-hour week, right? But think about it. If we do move up, let's say we're moving up and we go into the supply, can we fail here? You can see the resistance at 63.13 has been resistance, right? It's a pivot level. However, though, I just mentioned the balance rules. This is a low quality short. It's low. It could happen though, so I'm going to put it here. So we could fail at 63.13 and fall back. But that's a low quality short just based on balance rules. Okay? What's more a little realistic is if we push up into this area, this supply. Now we're at balance highs. And then what's going to happen is the longs from here are going to take profit. And if you get some lower highs here, you possibly can just go back into range at the end of the day. Okay, because the market's going to be strong to go up here. All right. That is your ES. Let's move on to NASDAQ. Here's your NASDAQ. Oh, that's a beautiful profile. Woo. That's a beautiful profile. Let's go. Where's my... Oh, here we go. That's a very balanced profile. Look at that. That's balanced, folks. All right. Let's look at it. We know we got our levels because we mentioned it in the hourly charts, right? Monster level 22830. Tried to get taken out. Couldn't do it, right? Very balanced profile in the overnight. Look at that. That means the auction's complete in the overnight. Okay, it doesn't have a poor high like the ES, and you're right at the month to date anchor VWAP. You're in the chop zone right now. You're in between this 229 most traded price of the week and the most traded price of the month. Okay, now 230 up here might probably shift. This white line will shift. This most traded price of the week will probably shift up here when the market opens. Okay, so again, it's all about the balance. It's all about the balance. Okay, same thing. All right. So right off the bat, let's just get into it. I'm gonna open this up. Look at the price action. There's our price action of the NQ. Okay. We're gonna mark off some levels. So now we have our we're 22830. That's your most traded price of the month and the key support. Nasdaq holds that. Nasdaq should go back up. Okay. 229 right here is a key level. It's holding the markets at bay right now. Okay. Then we have your close is right here as well from Friday. All right. Then we have supply up here. Which could encompass the 230, which is the most traded price of the 24-hour week. And then you have balance highs up here, which is the previous 2 weeks highs. Okay. It's simple. It's not, this isn't going to be rocket science today. I like it. It's simple. It is Monday, but I like where we're at. Well, in the Nasdaq, you're in this little bit of a chop zone. I'm not in love with that, but you're coming off a key level and you reclaimed it. Like I said, shorts are going to have a hard time unless there's some news catalyst. Okay, so let's get into it. And let's start off with the bull. And it's going to be very similar. It's going to be very quick because it's very similar. Okay, this is a very balanced profile. Most traded price of the overnight's around 22870 right here. Okay, you do have this level that you need to reclaim, I believe, to find a good long. Now, like I said, I don't really love this area. However, what could I see? Here's the two scenarios. Okay, find resistance at that level. Okay, shorts get a little time here. You go into this demand. Maybe test that level. Boom, get higher lows. Target the 229. Reclaim that, hold it. Yup, you're probably going to go and tap Friday's highs, 23021, right? This is the most traded price of Friday, and see if you can make yourself go up in balance rules. Okay. Another scenario. Rip down, take out this, you sweep that liquidity, and you reclaim this level, also can go higher. Number 3, you just straight up open up, drive, find support at the 229 to go higher. Those are your longs. Those are your longs. Okay. Now, let's talk about that. I don't know how to go forward. I don't think there is. That's okay. Let's go to. Let me just fix that. It's bothering me. All right, let's go to the short side. Let's talk about that. All right, short side in this chop zone. Not a fan of it. Okay. Now, how do you use what I just said in inverse? Okay. If we open and we drive up and we take out this 229, but we reject and come back through and pull back, short that, you take profit down into 22830 and then see if you can break the overnight lows. Almost a poor low, almost down here. Okay, you take that out. Now I've been mentioning this a lot. There is such poor structure. You got single prints and single prints all the way down to 22650, the Nasdaq. That is very poor foundation. Okay, and I have to introduce you to the elephant on the toothpick here, because that's what this move is being held up by, as weak foundation. Now we're in July, generally a bullish month seasonality wise. Okay, I'm just saying I got to keep repeating it, because if this market is weak, this does not hold it. It's very poor structure. Okay, very poor structure. Okay, now that's one. What could happen also? Well, let's say you're scared of this, want to be in the chop zone, then you wait for this break, retest, and hold to go down. Okay, like I said, if you reclaim the 229, balance rules will take over, and we should push up. So if the market holds this, pushes up, and we go into the 2389s, that's resistance, and basically around the previous 2 weeks highs. Maybe we come up here, people take profits, you do some lower highs, and then you get a little sell off. That's not something I want to be involved in. It's a low probability play, or not a low probability play. This probably happens at the end of the day. I usually don't trade after 12:30. I'm done. I don't usually go back into the markets at 2 something, very rare, but that's viable. Okay, that's it, folks. That's the analysis for today. All right, hopefully you enjoyed that, and smash the like button. Be much appreciated. Be much appreciated. Okay, and of course, as always, subscribe, set an alert. Come join your boy every morning. Have a cup of coffee, tea, water, choice of beverage. Just listen to me. Let me give you the story of the markets. Story of the markets. Thank you, documents. Story of the markets. Okay? The leaders, the laggers, the economic news. And now we have earnings calendar. Remember, I gave you the earnings calendar. Okay? So we got our plans. And I really like the plans today, even though it's Monday. Now, I think games will be played. Okay? That's why I'm going to sit back and be patient and just wait for my setup and look at my little new tool, right? Which doesn't give me anything I don't know about. It just consolidates it into the window where I can just go there, that super dom, and go, there's my big buyers, there's my deltas, there's my profile, all there. Value area, VWAP, like everything right there. That's where it's really going to consolidate it for me, instead of me just putting together almost with separate windows. I don't know if I'm going to think that it's amazing or not. I already like it. I just don't know if I'm going to go forward. I might try recreating that with AI and Python and make my own, so I don't have to pay for it. I'm not sure. All right, and then like I said, that other thing that I'm going to try is it's called a limit order visualization. It literally looks like Bookmap. You know what Bookmap is? A lot of traders, futures traders use it. It makes you look at the markets, the bid and the ask, in a different visual heat map. Okay, and it shows passive liquidity on the buy side and the sell side, and it shows you bubbles when there's large buyers or large sellers hitting the bid or hitting the ask. Okay, and it's visually pleasing, because it's like, oh, there's a big bubble. Are we moving lower? Oh, there's another big bubble of selling. Are we moving lower? And like, say you're not. Well, that's absorption, right? The next move could be back up. But that visually gives, I look at a footprint chart, but the footprint chart doesn't visually give you the bubbles. Okay, so if I look at that thing and that thing is like Bookmap, then I gotta buy it. right? Because it's beautiful. It will work right inside Ninja. I don't have to have another piece of software that I pay a monthly fee to. I just have to see. I'll test it out and I'll let you guys know, right? If I use it this week, I'll definitely do it live to see, hey, let's look at it together. All right. So, anyway, enough of that. Again, we got our plan. I like it. Balance rules are in effect. Okay. Balance rules are in effect. So, now, if I don't see you guys today in my Discord, I'll see you tomorrow. All right. And where is that today? That's Discord and Confluence Trading. Okay. Let me be your indicator. All right. Like I said, I'm not. My job isn't to show you guys how to trade. Okay. It's to teach you about how the market works. And let me be your indicator. All right. You don't have to do what I'm doing. That's the hardest thing to do. Okay. I've been there. I've had mentors where like they gave me their system 100%. And they were like, and one of the guys, he was a floor trader for like 37 years. And this guy gave me literally his system. This is what you do. This is where you enter. This is what you do. And he didn't understand where his 37 years of experience that I'm just going to be able to copy his orders, like how he trades. But meanwhile, I had a million questions of what do you do here? What do you do? What do you do? What do you do? And he would answer them, but I'd be like, well, I don't have that experience. And I'm not in your brain, right? Very hard to borrow somebody's strategy because your emotions are different. Your anxiety is different. Your risk tolerance is different, right? That's why, like, hey, if you want to look what I'm looking at, fine. But I would think the bigger thing is to use me as your indicator, okay? Because I'm going to give you live updates, like just like here, okay? And you're going to know what's going on under the hood. You're going to know, oh, wait a minute. Steve just said the internals are not showing a big move. So I was just going to go long, but we're at the upper portion of the range. Maybe that's not a good long. Okay? That's the beauty of the internals. So, and Documents knows. He purchased the weighted AD indicator. Okay? It really, really is like looking inside the market. Like how healthy, if it's a human being, I can go, oh, let me look at the hearts, the lungs, the liver, the kidneys. Oh, this guy's in good shape. Oh, this guy's not in good shape. Right? All right. Anyway, I went way too long today. Getting a little excited here. Anyway, everybody have a great day. If not, I'll see you in my room.